Hello, hello. Hey, Dina. Oh, let me allow to talk so you can speak. All righty. How are you doing? I just unmuted you so you can speak, Dina.
Oh, hi.
How
Howdy.
are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
Oh,
great. I'm actually in a hotel in Denver, so I may have to drop a little bit early. It's my sister's 60th birthday party today.
gotcha, gotcha. It looks like we got a few more people to join. Ayan, I'm going to be working on rescheduling our time together, Ayan, since we missed this week. And Natalie and Stephanie, welcome. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Let me share my screen so we can get started. I am thrilled that I've got some folks that are here. It's summertime, and so we've had fewer participants, which is super understandable because it's summertime and it's beautiful outside. But if I can get a thumbs up, let me know if you guys can see my screen. I just want to make sure that you can see what's going on.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, welcome. We may have a few extra folks join, but if not, it'll be a very intimate group, and I love those. I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking to you guys about the role of the chief of staff, prompt engineering, a little bit about AI, and then we are going to go through a couple of interactive things where you can use it today. My goal is always to provide you with an opportunity where it's not just theory, but it's stuff that you can walk away from and actually utilize it in your day to day, whether it's for work or any other type of scenario. So let's just jump right into this. What I wanted to do is talk to you about how we utilize AI and who this is for. And this is really for everyone who, like, if you are you feel like you've been unseen, you are always holding the team together. We're going to be defining the chief of staff. The chief of staff is a person who they're anticipating the things that need to happen and they jump on board and they do it. But sometimes it does feel a little unsustainable. And so we're going to talk about what are some strategies that we can use today to make sure that it is something that is sustainable. It is something that you can do long term. It is something that as you are looking at doing some types of strategic work, that if you're not doing it, how do you transition into being able to do that? It is for that person who wants to lead very boldly, who wants to crave a space where you don't have to explain yourself. You just lead and do the thing that makes you stand out and makes you excel in all the spaces that you're in. And so that's what this is for. Uh, I love to share this picture because I like to talk about who this is not for. And it's not for a person who's looking for a quick fix. The things that we're going to talk about take a little bit of work. It's not for a person who thinks that AI is going to do everything for them. When you utilize AI as a tool, it literally is an extension of what you're trying to do. And it gives you time in your day and it helps optimize the work that you're doing. So, folks who are comfortable with the status quo, this is not going to work for them. But anybody else who's like, I just want to jump in, I want to be able to tell the truth, I want to be able to um, do work that is meaningful to me. This is who this is for. And so before we get started, I just want to introduce myself to those of you who may not know me. I see some familiar faces. Shari, welcome back. I'm always happy to see you. And so for those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Anne Marie. Last year, I wrote a book about the chief of staff and received wonderful reception to that book. So I'm in the process of writing my second book about the chief of staff. Why do I do this? I've had an opportunity to work for some amazing companies, Edmunds.com, The Car People. I've done some work in the tech space, as you can tell, in the entertainment space. And last month, I celebrated my 10th year at Microsoft. And so I have some experience in being able to talk about the topics that I'm going to address today and the ones that I hope to address in the future. A little story that I love to share about Microsoft is uh, one of my first jobs was working at Netscape. Some of you who don't have as many grays as I do will remember Netscape, but Netscape and Microsoft warred for a very long time, the browser wars. And I swore I would never work for Microsoft. However, the wonderful thing about time is that people and organizations change, they mature, and their focus shifts to things that are a little bit more altruistic. And so it's been an amazing 10 years so far that I've been with Microsoft. So I'm very excited to share my story and this with you. And so let's talk about why I'm doing this. Back then, what I wanted was to just be seen. I wanted to be recognized not necessarily for all of the work that I was doing, but for the person that I was. Not just because I could execute, but that I also had a portion of me that was very human. I wanted to lead without compromising any of my values. And so, as I've been developing the things that we're going to be talking about, the courses that I've uh, created, the coaching program that I have, it's because I wanted to create a space for people who are like me, who maybe you don't fit the traditional mold of leadership, but you still have strength, you still have a lot of clarity. And I learned the hard way. I think we've all learned the hard way how to do things, and there's days where I wish somebody gave me a blueprint or at least told me the gotchas where I could get in front of the things that could potentially slow me down. And so that's what we're going to talk about, or the blueprint that I used to be successful. And and we talk a lot about being able to sit at the table, being invited to the table. Sometimes you just have to create your own table, and that's what I'm doing. I am creating my own table to make sure that it is as inclusive and diverse as I strive it to be, and that makes me the most comfortable. And so again, I'm so excited to be able to share this with you. I've sat in companies where I was the most qualified, but I was always passed up. And I've worked twice as hard, three times as hard just to be seen as competent, let alone exceptional. I would take on extra work. Being the sole Black person sometimes at the table, I'd be given the DEI initiatives because you have a perspective that we want to hear. And sometimes that's a lot to put on an individual. And I don't always feel like saying no is an option. And you might feel like the same thing, that you can't always say no to what you're being tasked to do. But I didn't want to quiet quit. I didn't want to be upset. I didn't want to get angry. So what I did was I observed how power was moving and I learned how to have that influence me and the work that I was doing. And so that's what we're going to talk about for the next little while. So I'm asking you to think about this question to yourself. Are you the one who is the behind the scenes fixer? Are you creating space for others, but nobody's really creating that space for you? And think about what would it feel like to have somebody create that space for you? Is there one thing that you're doing today because you cannot say no? How would it feel to get permission to stop doing that thing? So I know you're ready to stop doing things the hard way. I'm going to show you a couple of my shortcuts. And then I want you to think about what is it that you want to walk away with. And I want to make sure that I address that thing for you. So let's do this together. Let's start to transform your career. What I'll talk about at the end is also about the Chief of Staff Academy. Um, and really, being a chief of staff is bridging departments, dealing with chaos, keeping projects alive with duct tape and grit. And and sometimes you don't get the recognition, um, but you're doing the strategy. And so this is why somebody might want to have a seat at the table, because it's not just a to-do list. You're literally helping people connect the dots and understand what is tactical and what is strategy and how that comes together. It's not about fluff. It's about high performers, folks like you who are ready to lead, not just assist. Um, because you have a framework now. You can be brilliant without ever feeling lost or uh, feeling like you're in the mix. Um, you're going to have some clarity. You're going to get some tools. You're going to get the opportunity to stop guessing and start leading with confidence. And as much as possible, this will give you an opportunity to try to future proof your career, whether you want to be a COO, a founder, or you're just starting out. It's just not about being certified, it's about fast tracking your way to just being effective. And you don't want to do it alone. There's a lot of programs that are out there. And the thing that's unique about the thing that we're going to talk about is, as a person who's been a chief of staff at Microsoft and other organizations, I'm bringing real life experience to how you can implement these things today. And so before we jump into the meat of the chief of staff, I want to talk to you about the history of AI. I think it's important for us to just start to ground the beginning of AI. And so those, again, those of you who've been with me, some of this is going to be real familiar. For those of you who are new, I hope you find this exciting. AI started in the 1940s. It wasn't something that has started in the last like maybe 10, 15 years. Um, in 1943, two individuals, McCulloch and Pitts, they wanted to create a mathematical model of a neural network. Now, if you're not sure what a neural network is, it's a type of computer system that tries to act like the human brain. So the best way to think about a neural network is, imagine that you're teaching a child how to recognize pictures of cats and dogs. Initially, they're going to get it wrong. But over time, after seeing lots of examples, they start to get better at telling them apart. And that's the way a neural network works. It learns from examples. So it takes the input, which is a photo, it passes it through layers of neurons, which are tiny decision makers. And each one of the layers looks different. So it looks like shapes or colors or ears or tails. And then it gives you an output, which is the cat or the dog. And just like a child, the more example that it has, the better it gets at recognizing the differences and returning the right result. And so this really started to lay the groundwork for AI. And a lot of computer science pioneers started to think about, can a machine think? And so the first thing here that I've got, 1950, Alan Turing, who's known as the father of AI, wrote a paper called Can Machines Think? And he proposed a Turing. I am back. Let's see. I can see Blessing's photo. All right, let me. All right, I'm hopefully back. Can you see me? Oh, perfect. My computer decided, well, Zoom decided it was going to log me out. It's done that once in a blue moon, but not when I'm on an actual call. So I'm back. So thank you for hanging on with me. I'm going to jump right into where I was. We were talking about Alan Turing. And so he proposed a Turing test. And the Turing test, really what it did is it took output from a person and it would ask a question, and then it would see if people could tell the difference between a person and a machine. And they weren't able to tell the difference. And that was the first step into seeing, could computers actually think? Why this matters, this is really, like I said, laying the groundwork for AI. Even though AI at that time didn't necessarily exist, it started to plant the seeds for AI in the future, which was very exciting. Then you move into the birth of AI when the term was actually coined in 1956, again by three gentlemen who were at a conference, and they used Alan Turing's paper as a model for the way that they were thinking about computer thinking. In the 1950s, 1957 to 1980, we started to see some progress. Computers started to think a little bit more effectively. And you had things like ELIZA, which was a computer program that was designed to think like a person. Specifically, it was to simulate a conversation. And so what happened was AI, you can think of ELIZA like an early chatbot. It pretended to be a therapist, and then it would respond based on what you typed. So an example would be you would type into ELIZA and say, I feel sad today. And ELIZA would say, why do you feel sad? Why do you feel sad? Now, it didn't operate the way the chatbots do today. They're a lot more, a little bit more evolved in the way that they respond. But it would just take what you were saying and then flip it into a question and see if it could respond and make you feel like it was listening. The reason ELIZA is so important, it was one of the first computer programs to show that machines could actually simulate human-like conversation. And people actually got a bit attached, even though it was just pattern matching. And so ELIZA is probably the great great grandparent of AI. Limited understanding, but very groundbreaking. AI back then was very expensive. And so then it went into its first winter. The second winter, um, they started to try to build in a lot more models, but it was really expensive and brittle. And so it went into its second winter, where there wasn't a lot of progress that was made with AI. Now we look at today, where there's a huge evolution of AI, the modern era. Now, Deep Blue, the reason this was so important, it was a chess playing computer designed by IBM, and it became the first computer system to defeat a reigning chess champion under standard conditions. Now, this sounds kind of silly because you think a computer could come up with all the different algorithms to be able to beat a person, but computers had not evolved to be able to understand their programming so they could outthink the way that a person was thinking. And so it was a huge deal when Deep Blue was actually able to beat a person in chess. Then you've got what we are experiencing today, which is the data revolution. Um, when I talk about different companies like Google and Amazon, Facebook, and they started to develop a lot of different models, a lot of data models for us to be able to utilize AI a lot more heavily than we did in the past. Then you have AlexNet. Now, remember in the beginning, I talked about a neural network. Well, computers struggled with images, and you probably will see this today in the things that you're doing, that they struggle with being able to render images correctly. Well, in 2012, AlexNet won a major image recognition contest because it was able to identify pictures far better than any previous system. And this was huge. And so now you're seeing a lot of the progress today with what's going on with computers. And now you've got generative AI, where there's natural language processing. We're going to go into a lot of these definitions a little bit later. GPT models and the LLMs. What is a large language model? We're going to talk about all of this stuff. But at least it gives you an idea of where AI came from and where it's headed and why it's important for you to be able to utilize this on a consistent basis. So let's just talk about AI. What is artificial intelligence? Frankly, all it is the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines. especially computer systems, trying to emulate human thought. And so it takes learning, which is acquiring the data, reasoning, using rules to process the data, and then using self correction mechanisms to be able to give you the right outputs. As you'll see, there are a lot of different AI tools. This is not a comprehensive list. This is just some of them, and they all have free versions. I would encourage you to play with all of them and do work in all of them. Now, the thing about AI is the more you use a specific platform, the better it knows who you are and returns the responses that are more inclined to what you are looking for. So for me, I use ChatGPT a lot. So it knows me, it knows my assistant, it knows the type of audiences that I'm trying to work with. And so it recognizes a lot of the patterns that I'm giving it, and it returns the responses that are mostly accurate to what I'm looking for. You'll find this happens with all of the different platforms. The more you use it, the better it gets to know you. You're building that neural network. It's starting to understand who is Anne Marie. Let's talk about some terminology. AI, like I said, it's the simulation of human intelligence in machines. And so the best example of this is Netflix, recommending shows based on your viewing habits. What is machine learning? Machine learning is a subset of AI, and it's learning from data to improve over time without any explicit programming. So another example of this is Spotify. Spotify starts to see what kind of music that you keep thumbs up or thumbs down, and it gives you results that are relevant to what you're looking for. Natural language processing. This is the one that we're all probably the most familiar with. And it's the ability for the machine to understand what you're asking it and provide you with a response. And so things like Siri or Cortana, when they're responding to you, or Alexa, that is what natural language processing is. And then the last major concept that I want you to understand is LLM, a large language model. This is where all of the data is being housed, so then it can generate the human-like responses. So ChatGPT, Gemini, those are all LLMs that can actually write emails, summarize reports, and even create content for you. This next, we won't drain this particular slide, but these are other terms that it's good for you to be familiar with. So API, Application Programming Interface, that's been around for a very long time. The ability for systems to be able to interact with one another. RPA, CNN, GAN, and text-to-speech. Text-to-speech was the precursor to Siri and Alexa, and it was actually the computer reading verbatim what it saw on a page. Text to speech has evolved because if you listen to earlier models, it didn't even know phonetically how to pronounce some of the words, so it would be incorrect. So you can always tell when it's text to speech based on that. The next thing I wanted to touch base with all of you is just around the ethical concerns and cautions around using AI. So data privacy. Everything that you put out there is fair game. And so some organizations have their own versions of using AI within their intranet, so they can make sure that anything that's proprietary is not fair game for anybody. But as you're using these different platforms, understand that once it goes out there, it's in the internet and anybody can access it. So be mindful of how you're using it, and if you're explicitly opting out to making sure that you don't have information out there that you don't want to have shared. Transparency and disclosure. Um, as we all are using AI, everybody uses it. Some use it more than others. I literally use it every single day. And so just being open about the fact that it's being utilized and it's helpful to you. Bias and hallucination. Something to be mindful of is that sometimes AI will respond and it will have all the confidence in the world and it will be absolutely wrong. I found this very, very interesting. My husband was taking a test and he was given the opportunity to use AI and any other tools. And the responses would come back with a high level of confidence that it was correct, and we would see that it was incorrect. So as you're using AI, make sure that you're verifying that the response is correct. Don't take it for face value, because sometimes, I wouldn't even say sometimes, a lot of times, AI could be incorrect. And then the most important thing is that human judgment, your judgment is so important. It matters because you are double checking to make sure that things are correct, that the response is accurate, and that it is relevant to what you've got going on. So that's a little bit about the history of AI. Let's talk about a chief of staff. How does a chief of staff use AI? We're gonna dive into this a little bit deeper, but one is around meeting efficiency. As I sit in meetings, AI will transcribe, summarize, and capture all of the action items for me. If I've missed a meeting and my note taker has been invited, my note taker will send me a summary of what's going on. That saves hours of just manual work. Scenario planning. If you haven't thought about using it for this, this is a great way to utilize AI for what if situations. So it gives you options on how you want to deal with something that is happening. If you're trying to solve a problem at work, ask it, what if I do this? What is the outcome? And it's going to help visualize the different ways that you can solve that problem. Communication. This is probably one of the heaviest ways that people are using AI today to draft emails, memos, executive correspondence. Um, and we're going to do this today. We're going to learn how to use it so it helps us with tone and making sure that we're getting the key messaging points. And then we even with strategic documents. I taught a session AI for some of the chief of staffs that I worked with at Microsoft, and we took a highly complex strategic document and had AI tell us what are the key points, what are the things that we should get from it, and then even asked it to explain to us if we were in high school, if we were somebody who was unfamiliar with the content that was being presented, and how the summary would change to adapt to what our ask was. As a chief of staff, you're going to benefit tremendously using AI because it's going to help you with time. It's going to help you focus on the things that are most important, and it's going to automate a lot of the work that you're doing. And so let's talk about what's a chief of staff, because what we're going to talk about is what is the role? How can you use AI to help you focus on the more critical aspects of your job? So chief of staff is that strategic partner. You're going to help build trust. What does that mean? You're going to help establish credibility with the executive team and the teams that you interact with. You're going to be protecting your principal's time, which means you're going to filter the information and you're going to prioritize the demands of the day based on what's going on for your executive. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily managing their calendar. What it does mean is that you understand where that person needs to be, and as necessary, you find delegates who can sit in for that person so they're focused on the highest priority actions that need to happen. You're going to be anticipating their needs, which means you're staying 2 steps ahead of what's going on. You understand the goals, you understand what the roadblocks are, and you're able to navigate that effectively. And then providing the candid feedback means you've become a trusted advisor. You can talk to them about alternatives, and they feel comfortable trusting you. Uh, I had a situation with one of my executives where we were engaging with a coach that she had utilized for a very long time. As I was doing my research, even though the coach was somebody who was very valued by this executive, the learning that the team was hoping to get from the experience was not exactly where it ended up. And so I ended up having to have a really candid conversation with my executive around we probably should open up the field to other potential coaches who could address the things that were most pressing for our team. It was a really tough conversation to have because I was new with the team and we were undertaking this new development initiative. But because I had shown up with data and I found myself being vulnerable first to make sure that she didn't feel like I was picking on her baby. We were able to have a very fruitful conversation, and I even addressed the beginning of the conversation by saying, "I want to share something with you, but I'm hesitant because it doesn't necessarily align with what you're thinking, but I have some information that I feel would be valuable as we're making this move forward." And she was extremely receptive, and we ended up having a fabulous conversation. So that's one of the things that you do as a chief of staff is you're not their yes person. You are the person that they can whiteboard ideas with, and they know that you're going to show up with the best perspective to help the organization, even if it's contrary to what they have. Uh, the next thing that you do as a chief of staff is you are managing executive relationships. And I see I've got the word relationships in there twice. It must be really important. That's why I've got it in there twice. But you are understanding, how are people moving? What are their working styles? And how do they want to receive information? You are the conduit that establishes clear communication patterns. Again, this is understanding what's the best way for people to take in information, and sometimes you will adapt your communication approach based on their preferences. Um, a while ago, I had written an article called "The Drift," about communication styles, and it was based on a movie called Pacific Rim. And I love movies with large robots, and they're a little bit silly, but they make me smile. But the concept of the drift was that you had two pilots who were operating one machine, and they were unified in thought, even though they were unique individuals. And not until they could actually be connected in thought, they couldn't move the machine. And it was a really interesting concept because once they were connected, they were in the drift and they could move together. And the machine was this huge, it was called a kaiju. It's a huge robotic machine, and it was used to battle, you know, these monsters. Like I said, my guilty pleasure is Godzilla, King Kong, all those movies. And so, but the way that the two pilots worked was in tandem. And if they had funk, if they couldn't sync up together, they were not able to control the machine effectively. And it took them a moment to kind of hone in on who they were, connect, and they were effective. And so you are understanding how people are working. Have you had people tell you you're an excellent communicator? That's what this is about. Being able to create those things. And then you're just being a consistent person. You are following through on on your commitments on a reliable basis. And then you're maintaining confidentiality. A thing about being a strategic operator, chief of staff, is that there are things that you're going to be privy to that other people in the organization, other leaders are not privy to, because you're trying to set up either protocols or frameworks. And it's very important for you to maintain that confidentiality. And that's how you become a strategic thought partner, because now the person knows that you're going to provide alternative solutions or perspectives when needed. And you're going to challenge some of the assumptions constructively and respectfully. The other part about being a chief of staff is that you are deep in cross functional leadership. What does that mean? You understand power structures. So you know who are the different people in the organization, how to navigate, how to help people um, across departments work together, and how to make sure that you've got the right delegates in place. There's team alignment, which again goes with the organizational navigation, making sure that the right power structures are mapped to the right individuals. You're going to understand the departmental goals that are supporting what is the strategy of the organization. And you're going to facilitate that conversation between the teams, especially when they're siloed. You're going to learn how to mediate disagreements, and you're going to try to do it as diplomatically as possible. Sometimes there's win-win solutions. Sometimes, because there are competing priorities, they're not always win-win. And so what you have to do is define decisioning. How does the team make a choice, understanding that sometimes you may not get exactly what you want, but it is what's best for the organization. And then you are in a position where you can also speak credibly for your executive. There were times where my leaders, they were double booked and they had to go someplace, and they would have me sit in on meetings for them. And although I wasn't that individual, I understood enough of the content of the conversation that I could bring relevant perspectives to the discussion, capture what we needed to do, and review those with my leader. And that's something that you do as a chief of staff. One of the biggest things is driving strategic initiatives. How do you drive projects and programs? Do you find that you do these things naturally? Do you enjoy doing these things? Successful strategic initiatives require a lot of high-level visions and detailed execution. And as a chief of staff, you're connecting these things together. So you're defining what is the vision, you're pulling in the correct stakeholders. And then when you're driving execution, it doesn't mean that you're the one that is doing the work. This is where you have your role-based accesses, your RACEs, your DACEs. You may be responsible, but you may be working with somebody else that's actually doing the work. And then you measure the impact at the end, which is, how did it turn out? Was it in a manner that was the most conducive for the team? Earlier, I talked about my entry point into being a chief of staff. Now, I started out as a project manager. I was the go-to person. Um, and you may do this in your day-to-day life. When I was getting married, I had told my husband, I don't want a wedding planner. I'm going to plan a wedding. And it's not that I don't think that wedding planners' jobs are not hard, but I just love planning things. And I planned our wedding within 3 months. And I like to think it was successful. We're still married and we're still happy. But are you that person who likes to plan things for the group? Is that you? Your entry point does not have to be a traditional method that you've done all of these things. You may have just been recognized as a go-to person, a person who gets work done. So you might come in from different ways. It doesn't mean that you cannot be a successful chief of staff. Then you enter the role mastery. How do you make sure that you're up leveling yourself on a consistent basis, looking for growth opportunities? This role serves as an excellent accelerator into different careers. There are many people who they decide they want to be COOs, they want to be senior managers. A good friend of mine went from being a chief of staff to the CEO of her own company. And so there's a lot of different entry points for you to do an executive career, but starting out as a chief of staff. Um, a little bit of history about the chief of staff. It started with Napoleon. He actually um, stood up the first chief of staff, and it was a commander like himself. And so his second in command managed the entire staff while he was looking at what was going on from a strategic perspective. And then they would get together and have conversations. And you don't necessarily need the domain knowledge. You need to be able to understand what are the goals of the organization and be able to share perspectives based on those goals. I have worked in extremely technical environments, engineers, developers, and I don't have, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a developer, but I am a strategist. I am a project manager who takes big picture and breaks it down into small pieces and understands how to move it step by step by step. And if that is you, this role is perfect for you. And so chief of staff is so many different things. Um, this image I love to share because it gives you a whole avenue of what a chief of staff does. They are partners, they're leaders, they're directors, they're strategic operators, they're business managers, they deal with communications. There's so many things. We cannot go into all the details about what a chief of staff is. If that is something that you are curious about, I've got my link in the chat. Let's set up some time so we can talk about how we can transition you into that role. Now we're going to get to the interactive part. We're going to talk about prompt engineering and why it's so important. Prompt engineering has great business impact because it's going to help you when you understand how to create a prompt. It's going to help you deliver a result faster and with stunning accuracy, as long as you create a really good prompt. It also helps with operational efficiency. Like I said, when we create a prompt that is strong with the right framework, you're going to get the type of results that you're looking for. It's going to help you with decisions, and it's going to create some amazing content for you. Uh, a prompt is really just clear instruction, a question, a statement, something designed to initiate a response or guide your thinking or a trigger. So a prompt is something as simple as you tell AI what you want it to do. An example would be, what are your thoughts on this? And then you tell it what this is, and AI would respond to you. In writing, a prompt could be something as simple as write about a time you overcame a challenge, and that sparks storytelling if you want to be a better storyteller. If you're looking for instruction, you can say summarize this text in 3 bullet points or generate a professional email for a job inquiry. It can be so many things. And so, what I'm going to share with you is my prompt framework on how I go about creating a prompt. First thing we're going to do is we're going to give it structure. We're going to format it for clarity. The next thing is we provide it with context and a goal. Why and what is this for? Then, in some cases, you're going to outline the steps. How do you approach this particular query? And then you're just going to write the task. And then we're going to talk about personas. You want to simulate who this response is for or who is writing the response. So, what is a persona? A persona is really just a fictional representation of a type of person based on real data. So, an example of a persona would be a financial analyst, or you would say respond as a marketing expert. It's really important that you define the persona because it's going to help with the accuracy of the response. You're going to be telling AI that you have a specific situation, you want it to respond as a specific person, and then it's going to give you the right scenario or the right response for what you're trying to create. And so, what we're going to do in a little bit is we're going to actually write a task. We're going to be very specific with our task. We're going to be concise, which means no filler words, and then we're going to ask it to give us a response. We're going to ask for a request. When I talk about outlining the steps, sometimes you want to break it down if there are complex steps. So you may want to divide it into a sequential way for AI to follow. First do this, then do that, then summarize with this. You want to provide a clear sequence of how you want things to move, and then setting the priorities. When we talk about context and goals, uh, the more context that you have, the better the response. And so, is there a target audience? Is there background information that you can provide? Are there constraints? No more than 200 words. And is there industry specific information that would help? And then the goal setting, like what is the outcome that you're hoping to get? What are some of the success metrics that you'd like to see? And what is the purpose of the request? And then the end use of the output. If you spend just a few minutes providing it with this type of information, the actual response that you're going to get is going to be so clearer and better than if you just spend a few minutes. And then what you'll find is that instead of spending time creating all of this, AI is going to give you a draft, and then you can go ahead and verify using your human intelligence to make sure that it's accurate, clean it up so it's accurate. So we are going to test it out right now with this working prompt. I'm going to stop sharing this window, and I'm going to have everybody open up a platform. So I happen to use chat. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment because I'm going to open up my chat. I happen to use ChatGPT for a lot of things. You go ahead and choose whatever platform works best for you. Let's share again. All right. And hopefully you can all see my screen still. It should just show you ChatGPT that's open for me right now. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go back 1 second. What we're going to do is we're going to type in these prompts so we can start to get the results. And so I'm going to grab the prompt right now, and my assistant is also on, so she's going to be putting them in there for you, so you can also utilize them. Let's get to my prompt screen. There we go. And so we're not going to hit enter, but we're going to start to just feed it some information. So the first thing we want it to do is to act like an experienced HR policy writer. We've given it a persona. I'm going to put a period because we're going to add in some more information. What we want is the actual task. The task here, period, is we want, oh, hold on, give me the same one again. We wanted to create a remote work from home policy. There we go. And so that is the actual task. We're still not going to hit enter though. We want to give it some steps. This is the context now. We want it to be able to do several things for us. Define the eligibility, if there's equipment that needs to be used, hours, and communication. We're still not going to hit enter. We want to provide additional context. And this is industry specific. So for this specific one, we're saying we are a tech company with 50% of our workforce that is remote. Once that's done, now we want to give it some structure. Now, if you are an HR person, sitting down and writing all of this could take a full day, but now we're going to hit enter and we're going to see what kind of results we get from AI. It's giving us what is super useful, which is just a working draft of something that we could potentially utilize as the policy. And it's giving all of this information in just a matter of minutes. Now, if I was an HR person, I would go and I would buffer this up some more. But this is the start. This eliminated a whole bunch of time just sitting down and actually doing this working prompt. Hopefully you're seeing the same types of results in your windows. I'm gonna, let's see. Let me make sure that you guys, like, again, I'm gonna put this entire prompt in the chat also. There's the prompt, and you can go ahead and run this on your own and see what kind of results that it gives you. But when you structure a prompt well, like I said, you look at the persona, you're looking at the task, the steps, the context, and the structure, the result is so much stronger with what you're trying to do. We've just taken an opportunity to apply just very quickly what we've learned with trying to create a prompt. And hopefully you found that very helpful and easy. You're picking a business case. You've built a custom prompt. You're testing it in the AI tool of choice, and you're reviewing your results. We're going to do a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and put the prompt in the chat right now. And we're going to do a very simple prompt that says, help me write a professional bio for LinkedIn. I work in project management. I want it to sound confident, but not too formal. So we've given it, again, a little bit of structure. We're going to run it. Again, very quickly, it's giving you some information. Now you can go in and change it, tweak it as works best for you. But this is just the starting. This is a very simple and friendly prompt. Let's try one that's a little bit more nuanced and structured. I'm going to type it into the chat again. And you'll see that this one, it's a little bit longer, but you're giving it, again, a persona. You're giving it a lot of the information that we've talked about in the prompt framework. And we want to see what kind of results we get. It's not as direct as the first one was that we did, because we've given it some instruction. But as you can see, it's taken everything. Here's a polished pitch. It emphasizes these points that we've asked it to do. It's 3 paragraphs for a person applying to a startup. Let's do one that's a lot more complicated. Let me grab this one again. And I'll put it in the chat. This one's a little bit more lengthy. But now you're a coach, you're building a module, you want some help with this. You've given it steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you're asking it to make it so you can paste it into a deck. To me, it's amazing how fast AI will return a result. It's giving you exactly what you asked it for. It's broken it down into multiple modules. And then you can, I like that the way that they're evolving with AI is that it's also pinging you for additional questions. Do you want this? Do you want that? To be able to do, to get your result. This is a really simple way to be able to utilize AI today with writing emails. I'm going to pause for 1 second. I want to see, do you guys have any questions for me so far before we move on to job seekers and how we can use it in your job search today? Hopefully you're finding this very useful. Some of you have heard this before, so it's hopefully polishing up what you may have tried to work on before. But these are just different ways that you can utilize AI today to be able to help you with what you're doing. Let's see. I don't have any questions. Awesome. So hopefully it's just landing very, very well. So now what we're going to talk about is, I'm going to share my other screen now. We're going to talk about how a job seeker can leverage AI. There's multiple ways that you can use it. Resume and cover letter optimization, interview preparation. You can ask AI to ask you questions, doing company research, and then even using LinkedIn to help you, even using AI to help clean up your LinkedIn and for networking. And so what we're going to spend some time right now doing is figuring out how do you level up your job search with AI. And we're going to play with a resume that I've got, and we're going to have AI do a couple of things for us. So again, if you feel comfortable using your own resume, that's great. If not, let me upload. Let me see, Blessing, do you have the resume that you can upload for the folks? I'm going to go ahead and just move it into my window here. Let's find my June. There we go. Awesome. We're going to upload a resume for you to use. And the next thing I want you to do is don't hit enter yet. Go into LinkedIn. And we're going to go to the job section in LinkedIn. And it doesn't matter what job you pick. I'm just going to pick this one. Pick a job, capture all of it. And all I'm going to say is update my resume to match the job description. I'm going to enter the job description and I'm going to hit enter. What it's going to do now, it's going to take the resume that I've provided it, and it's making changes to that resume before and after. Now, LinkedIn chat has learned that whenever I'm asking it to make a change, I want to understand what the change is. And so it's literally telling me before and after what is happening with that resume. Let me see. I think, oh, it looks like I may have lost. Oh, I'm no longer screen sharing. Thank you for telling me, Stephanie. Let me. All righty. I'm going to scroll this up so you can see what I did. So I took the actual resume. I added, this is my prompt, update my resume to match the job description, and then I pasted in everything that was there. And that was directly from LinkedIn. So then chat went and it updated it and it said, here's the before and after, because I like to know how it's making the changes. And it made all of the changes. The reason I want to know the before and after is I might not agree with some of the changes that chat is making on my behalf. So I want to see how it's making sure that it's aligning the things from the job description to my resume. The reason I wanted to share this particular prompt with you is because we've passed the days where you can use one resume for multiple jobs. Like you can for some jobs, but because the market is so tight, it almost feels like you need to modify your resume for a specific role if that's something that you're looking for. And this is a really fast way of being able to do it. And then again, using human intelligence, you are the final curator of the information that's being shared there. So you don't just let AI do all of the work, but you make sure that AI is doing the work according to what you need, to the best way that you can have it done. Once it's done this for you, you can ask it to create a cover letter for this job and add bullets, my accomplishments. And again, it's going to do exactly what you ask. Here is the cover letter that you can use. It's highlighting your key accomplishments, the things that you've done, and made it in a readable fashion. Now, let's say that things are going well and you want to provide additional artifacts to your interviewer. I'm of the school of thought, like you teach a person how to fish so they can fish forever. So that's why I'm showing you my prompts, but I'm showing you how I'm using AI so you can go back and you can play with it on your own, because now that you've got a framework and you know what platform you want to use, you can go in there and do the things that you need to do to be able to get the results that you want. One of the things that I love creating is a 30, 60, 90-day plan. There are tons of templates out there. Of course, they're great, but what if you just wanted to create one based on what you received from the job that you're either applying for or that you started? So let's say we've got all this information. We're just going to ask it to create a 30, 60, 90-day plan based on the job description. And now it's going to create something for you. It's taking what's exactly in the job description and it's creating it for you. You are now providing your employer with an onboarding plan. Now, one of the tools that I love using is called Gamma AI. So we're going to go into Gamma AI. There is a free version of this tool, but because I use it so much, I actually have the paid version. But you can use the free version. So go ahead and type in Gamma AI, and it should be gamma.app. And I'll put this in the chat right now for everyone. Because there's a few of them. First thing you're going to do, we're going to go back to our chat, and we're going to hit the screen, which means it's going to copy everything that it returned the results for. Then we're going to go to Gamma AI, and we're going to say create something new. We're going to paste in the text, and it's pasted everything that we've got. Now I'm going to clean it up a little bit because I don't need all of this. And then the very bottom, we want to make sure that we clean it up also. Now it's going to give you a few different options. How do you want this to show up? I want it to preserve the exact text because I'm going to play around with it for a little bit. So what it does is a card is a slide. And so it's created actually 4 different slides for me for all of the text that I've posted in there. Let's say I'm fine with it. This looks great. I'm going to hit generate. It's going to give me an option for different looks and feel. And you can select whatever, this one did not actually. It went right into this. But typically it'll give you an option for different looks and feel. And then it can create what looks like a 30, 60, 90-day plan for you that you can share with either your manager or even if you're being very assertive about interviewing the potential hiring manager based on the conversations that you've had with them and say, I've been in these interviews. I have an idea of what you're looking for. Thank you so much for the interview, but I've created a 30, 60, 90-day plan on how I believe I could be impactful very quickly in your organization. And it's created all of this for you, and it looks beautiful. Let's say too heavy. There's too much here. You can always freeform. Okay, so they've moved the visuals to down here. They've had it changed. Right now it says it's going to do 10 slides. I don't want 10 slides. I want 1 slide. I want it to be minimal. And this is where you can actually do the change for look and feel. And I want this look and feel. Now it's going to do this in a 1-page slide, and it's going to condense it for you completely. And there you go. And you can make changes to everything that's in this. It doesn't just necessarily have to be just the format. You can change the picture. You can change everything. Again, this is a free tool that you can utilize that will help you as you are working on anything else that has to do with being able to present yourself well. I'm going to pause here for just a moment. Let me stop sharing. And then I want to see, again, any questions that you might have. And I'm going to go ahead, since we are such an intimate group, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So if you've got a question, you can come off of mute and ask me the questions that you might have. Again, this has been, for me, this is such a fun thing to be able to share with folks how they can utilize AI a little bit more in their day-to-day. So let me know what questions that you might have because we're nearing the end of the presentation and I'm hoping that you're finding this useful. And you can come right off of mute. I know you're all quiet. It should let you come off of mute right now if you've got a question or even just a comment that you want to make.
Hey, Anne Marie, it's Dana. I just want to thank you for doing all these sessions. I've loved all of them. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure. I learn so much more every time I do them. I learn something new. I figure something else out, and it's just been super helpful for me. So thank you so much, Dana. Anyone else, if there's any comments or anything else, would be happy to answer any questions that you might have right now. And then also, if you wanted to set up some time to meet with me, like I said, Ayan, I've got you on my list that I'm gonna take care of that. But if anybody else would love to, I actually think I've got time with most of you. So Stephanie, you're my newest person, so I'm gonna reach out to you later because I've been able to chat with all of these lovely individuals that are on my call. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better, Stephanie. But Sherry, Natalie, Ayan, Dana, thank you for joining me. Stephanie, you're the new face to this crew. So Ayan, I see you're off of mute.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you if this presentation will be shared with all of the participants.
I'm happy to send this to all of the participants. Absolutely. You'll get the framework and you'll get everything that I've discussed. So yeah, expect an email from me. I should be able to send it out to all of you by the end of today. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Oh, you're very welcome. Any other questions or anything else that folks might want to know? If not, all right. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning to go through AI and the Chief of Staff. I hope you found it useful. If you find that you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can all connect with me over LinkedIn, and I would be happy to respond. But I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and we will chat very soon. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.